Welcome back to Keeping It Real. This is the YouTube Lab. I'm Sarah Maslowski. I've closed over 150 million in volume directly from YouTube, zero paid ads. Last month, we talked about the foundation, why YouTube actually works for real estate agents, what type of videos attract real leads, and why most agents don't see results. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, I'd go back and start there. It'll make everything we cover today land a lot harder. Today, I'm going to make it real. I'm going to walk you through an actual client, the video they watched, the moment they decided to call me, exactly how that conversation went, and how one phone call from YouTube turned into over $3 million in closed volume. I'm also going to tell you the single biggest mistake agents make when a YouTube lead actually reaches out, because blowing this is more common than what you would think, and it's completely avoidable. So let's talk about the very first, or one of the very first clients that actually reached out to me. And they were relocating here from South Florida. Now, quick context, I was a teacher before I got into real estate, and most of my personal sphere are teachers. They have teacher salaries. So when I say that a $1 million buyer found me through YouTube, I want that to land for a second. This was not my typical sphere lead. This was someone who had no idea I existed, living in South Florida, who decided to relocate and found me through my content. That's what YouTube does. It reaches people who would never reach out to you any other way. So here's what most agents don't understand about YouTube leads. They don't watch one video and call you, they will binge watch your videos. This client had been watching my channel for months and months. They weren't sure where they wanted to land, but they knew that they wanted to get out of South Florida, and they hadn't decided on a city yet. So what do? They went to YouTube and they started watching city comparison content. They started watching what it was like to live there and neighborhood breakdowns and videos that I had made about the different areas here in the metro Atlanta area. And my videos, they kept showing up. And after watching enough of them, something clicked. They said later that the videos felt like they were made specifically for them. Like I understood exactly what they were thinking, what they were worried about, what they needed to know. And that's the power of this relocation content when you're doing it right. You're not talking at a camera. You're having a conversation with someone who is scared, excited, overwhelmed, and trying to make one of the biggest decisions of their life. In fact, I would kind of argue that maybe they're making even more of a bigger decision than someone locally would, because they're packing up their entire family, their entire life, and they're moving to a brand new area to have a new start. And when you make content that actually answers their real questions, they feel it and they connect with you. And one day my phone rang and I picked up the phone, and this was one of the very first few leads that I got when I started making content. And the first thing they said was, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're actually talking to you. It feels like we're talking to a celebrity." Y'all, at that moment, I was just really excited to talk to them as much as they were excited to talk to me. I was just getting the proof that this thing was actually working. And so I love that moment, not because of the celebrity comment, but because of what it tells you about where they are psychologically. They already trust you. They already like you. They've spent months watching you show up, be yourself, give value without asking for anything, so that by the time they call you, that relationship is already built. You don't have to cold call them. I certainly didn't have to cold call them. You don't have to chase these leads down. They call you. They are so excited to have an opportunity to speak with you. That is a completely different dynamic than any other lead source. And if you've called expireds or door knocks, I'm sure you can agree that this sounds like winning the lottery. So how did I handle that first phone call? Here's what I didn't do, or what I don't do whenever a YouTube lead calls. I don't launch into a pitch. I don't start asking them 47 qualifying questions. I don't dig into like how great they think I am or anything like that. What I do is I thank them for calling, because generally it means a lot to me. And I immediately work to set up a proper consultation. And for us, that is a web consultation meeting on Zoom or Google Meet. Now, this was one of the very first leads that actually reached out to me that I ended up closing. And since then, I've learned a lot. I've learned that instead of having leads reach out to you via email or phone call. In our videos now, we direct them to fill out a link. And I'm going to share with you a little bit more in the episode about why. So going back to getting them onto a consult on a Zoom or Google Meet, here's why that matters. And I learned this the hard way. They already know you. They already know what you look like. They see you from YouTube, but you don't know them yet. You have no clue what they look like. And this showed up for me as an agent when I was meeting clients. Sometimes they were coming into town for the first time, and we would meet at a new construction model home. And I'm watching people get out of the car. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like, is that Bob and Mary from South Florida? Because it sure doesn't look like that could be a Bob or Mary. So I realized, like, hey, I really need to see what they look like first. And having that Zoom consult really helps bridge that gap. So that web consult is your chance to actually meet them, see their face, and build that two-way connection. And I found that it changes the dynamic completely compared to trying to do everything over a phone call. Now, I mentioned that we switched to a intake form. So in my videos, I direct everyone to reach out to us if they want to get connected and for them to fill out a short Google form. Now, in that Google form, it's asking them just a couple of questions. It's 5 questions, nothing overwhelming, just enough to qualify them and help us prepare. And I want to be clear about what this is not. It's not an interrogation. It's not 20 questions. It's not a deep dive into their history and what they're looking for. We're going to save all of that, the real discovery, for the actual consultation. The intake form is just about making sure that we're going to be a good fit before we both invest an hour together. I learned this again the hard way when I would have people hop on that consult and I would find out that their budget is $200,000. They want 5 acres. And they want to be 30 minutes to a grocery store. I don't know where you're listening to this from, but newsflash, here in the Metro Atlanta area, that does not exist anymore. So I found through trial and error, landing on this method, and this system respects everyone's time, including yours. Not every YouTube lead is going to be the right client. And the intake form helps you show up prepared and helps them feel like they're working with someone who has a process. Now, after our consult, this client did something that I want to normalize for you. They came to town for an exploratory trip first. If you're working relocation buyers and someone tells you that they want to come and visit before they decide to go house hunting, do not interpret that as hesitation. That is the sign of a serious, qualified buyer. And in fact, I really drive home the fact that if a client has never been to the area, or they're not familiar, that they must come to town for that exploratory trip first before we ever start looking at houses. And that way they're not wasting your time. They're doing their due diligence. They're going to move to the city, going back to these clients, that they were here moving to the city and they're going to buy $1 million home. Of course, they want to see it first and get familiar with the areas that they're thinking about moving. So an exploratory trip is always a really great sign, something I really encourage. And in fact, it's a red flag to me if I get a client that wants to make a move and they want to jump right into seeing houses if they've never been to the area or they're not familiar with where they want to be. So going back to my client, after that trip, they knew that this was the place that they wanted to be, and we got to work. Now, that looks like following up with the actual lead. And here's where I've seen agents blow this, including me. I've blown this too. I've seen it more times than I can count. And that is where a YouTube lead reaches out, agent responds, maybe you have that initial consult, and then the lead doesn't reply right away, or things go a little bit radio silent from either end. It could be the client or it could be you as an agent. You get busy. You're working with all these great leads that you have coming in. You know that Bob and Mary, they're not moving until the end of the year, and you put them on a drip campaign. You make notes in your CRM to follow up with them come October. And maybe you don't hear from them, they don't hear from you. And maybe in your mind, you're thinking, oh, maybe they weren't that serious. And you just move on and you keep working with business that's right in front of you. This is a huge mistake. YouTube leads are often in the early to middle stages of their decision. They're researching. They may be comparing cities, timelines. They may still be kind of discovering who they want to work with, although that's unusual. But the fact that they reached out at all means that you made the short list, and this is something that they're seriously considering. Going quiet because they didn't respond to you doesn't mean that you just disqualified yourself. It means that they could still be doing some additional research, and or You need to make sure that you as the agent are following up with them just like you would any other lead. We all know in real estate that buyers often sometimes will not truly know their time frame. They may say that they're moving towards the end of the year, but life events could happen. Something could change, and all of a sudden they're now moving in August, and they originally planned to move at the end of the year. I can't tell you, there's been more times than what I would want to admit where I've reached out to a client where I had them marked down at a certain time point, reached out to check on them and see how they're doing and say, hey, looks like, I remember you're planning on making a move by the end of the year. And they say, oh my gosh, Sarah, oh gosh, we just closed on our brand new construction house. The, builder was running some sort of great incentive and this just worked out perfectly time-wise. We're so excited to be here. And then you're just stuck with saying, oh, that is so fantastic. I'm so happy you're here. So you need to make sure that you're following up regularly, even if they're giving you a time frame. And you need to follow up with value, not just checking in. Send them a relevant video. Share with them a neighborhood update. Let them know what's going on in the market. Ask a question that shows that you were listening during that consult. Stay in their orbit. The agents who win with YouTube leads are the ones who understand that YouTube already has built that trust. Your job is just not to break it. So make sure you're doing that follow-up. Now, let me tell you how the story ended. So that one phone call from a relocation buyer in South Florida, that one who said, I felt like a celebrity, that one phone call turned into 4 closed transactions worth over $3 million in volume. She bought her home, then her sister moved here, then she brought her best friend, and then her parents moved. One video, one phone call, one client who felt seen by my content, that turned into 4 transactions and $3 million in volume. This is the power of what a YouTube video can do for you and your business. So when a lead first contacts you, here's the framework that I want you to know. Thank them warmly and acknowledge that they reached out. I strongly encourage you to move towards that intake form if you're not already doing that, and reach out to them after they fill out that lead intake form. Let them know that you're excited to work with them. Based on their answers to that question, either provide value to what they responded as kind of like why they're not a good fit to work with you. I mean, we're not telling them why they're not a good fit, but let's say that they reach out and they mark off that they want to be in a rental and you don't work rentals. Make sure you're still providing value with them and giving them some resources for rentals that they can lean on, so that they know that you're still someone that is just like you are on your videos and that you're helpful and that you're trustworthy. So you still want to make sure that you're providing value to them. And if they fit within what clients you like to work with and your time frame and what's available in your area, get them scheduled on a consult. And the key to that is that you don't want to leave your calendar wide open for anyone to schedule on your calendar. I like to see what their time frame is and kind of make a judgment call as to how quickly do I need to put them into my calendar. So if they fill out that intake form and they're telling me that they are going to need to be here within 30, 45 days because they're relocating for a job and it starts pretty soon, well, then I'm trying to get them in as quickly as possible on my calendar. If there's someone that's thinking about relocating in a year from now and they're waiting on a retirement date, well, have a little bit more flexibility with that client and I can schedule them at the end of the week or maybe on one of my slow days. Just don't try to do your full discovery on that very first phone call when you're trying to set up that web consult. So get the information that you need, use it to qualify and prepare, and make sure that you're following up with them and get them onto that consult. Now, whenever you are having that consult with them, make sure that you're encouraging them to come into town for an exploratory trip and you're treating that as a green flag. It's always a red flag to me if a buyer wants to come into town and start seeing houses when they've never been here at all. And after you have that consult, again, it's all about the follow-up and the value that you're providing to them to make sure that you're staying top of mind with them, not only through the videos that you're making every single week, but you're taking what you learned from that consult, you're putting in that personal touch, and you're not just relying on a drip campaign or a note in a CRM system that tells you to follow up in 6 months. And then when you do, you find out that they've already bought a house. Hello, I'm talking to myself here. So obviously you can see that I've been through this several times and learned my lesson the hard way. The beauty of this form of lead generation, YouTube leads don't come in cold. They come in warm. Sometimes they come in hot. They want to be here in 30, 45 days. By the time someone calls you after watching your content for months, the trust is already there. Your job is to honor that trust with a system that meets them where they are. Next month, I'm sitting down with an agent who went from zero YouTube presence to it becoming one of their primary lead sources in their business. They're going to be honest about how long it took, what didn't work, what did, and how it fits into their actual schedule. So you don't want to miss that one. If you have questions or want to connect, you can find me over on Instagram at YouTube with Sarah or connect with me at youtubewithsarah.com. Until next month, I look forward to seeing you around.